Ian, are those sticky notes, dude?
Yes, I am.
Oh my god, I thought you were doing like some crazy magic card shuffle. I was like, holy shit.
No,
Ian's
he's just
like,
making.
no
He's
joke.
just. Ian's over there,
He's
like
just ruining your audio
trying.
Quality.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's actively
There's
trying
no
to
way
make my
if this
job.
picks up on the audio,
I can hear it.
You can very clearly hear it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was just sitting over here like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
That reminds me of when we had Lauren, MTG Hot Dog, on our podcast as a guest. And at one point I just keep hearing this clicking sound. And I'm like, Lauren, are you like clicking a pen cap on and off a pen over and over again? And he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I am. I'm just fidgeting. I haven't been doing that for long. And I was like, you've only been doing it for 10 minutes. Don't even worry.
Welcome, everybody, to the Mind Sculptors podcast, where we help you sculpt a winning mindset. I'm the Mind Sculptor Callahan.
That's not what we said.
Well, that's what I said, so deal with it.
Hello, I am also one who sculpts. I'm Ian.
And I'm, hold on, let me check my lines. I'm not a Sculptybois, but I'm here.
It's Sam. One salty. You know what? We can say you're one salty boy.
I am a salty boy. I really am one salty boy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Sam from the Howling Salt Mine is joining us this week. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having guests on the show because it's a great opportunity, especially guests who Ian and I have hung out with in the past, and know it's like when we have a read on, right? Yeah. And the three of us, it just evolves into.
There will be a certain level of chuckle fuckery for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've heard my show.
So I do want to ask a question, because I kind of thought about this while I was editing the next episode. Or if you listened to our last episode, what would have come out on Friday, if you're listening to this the Monday it came out.
You guys can't do this again. You can't do this.
The funny thing was, the reason I say that is we have done that on 3 different episodes. We did that on the last top 10 that we did too. Mm-hmm. So it just cascades. But so I was thinking about this because So when you have like 1v1 magic, right? On a turn, you could theoretically, I'm wearing my baseball, jersey, right? You could refer to it to the top of the turn and the bottom of the turn, kind of like you do in baseball when it's 1v1.
Like innings and stuff.
Yeah, like the top of the inning, the bottom of the inning.
Mm-hmm.
In a 4-player game, what would you refer to turn one, second player, turn 1, third player, turn 1, fourth player?
First base, second base, third base, home plate.
First quarter.
Did I meet my sports quota for the episode?
No, so you have first position is top, right? Fourth position is bottom, and then everyone in the middle is a switch.
Switch 1 and switch 2. Okay.
I knew it was going there.
Or in some communities, also known as verse.
It really depends. We accept all people.
You could not have made it sound like the two of us are not big old queers more than saying it that way. For sure.
No, I know. I'm very like. We don't. I mean, just look at my fucking microphone, right?
Like,
I wonder what I think about that. So before we get into the top 10, I do have a little game that I want to play.
Ooh.
And it's going to be called Guess That Deck. Okay. All right. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 10 cards from the deck. And you have to, from those 10 cards, figure out what the commander is.
Deck.
Yeah. I don't have a catchy theme song for it or a catchy name, but right now I'm calling it Guess That Deck. If you're in the comments and you have a better idea for this
Sam's
game,
actually really good with music, so I feel like we could like we could come up with a little something here. We can fuck around with it.
I'm not going to sing on command, dude. If that's what you're going for,
dance, monkey, dance.
I'm not ready.
I haven't had time to do my warm ups.
Like, I don't even have a guitar.
So the first one, I figured I would give you guys an easy one.
Okay.
Figured I'd give you an easy one. So name that or guess that deck. First card I'm going to give you is
Magda.
Sorry.
Okay.
So the first card.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to give you. You basically get 10 cards to guess it. So the first card is Karn the Great Creator. Okay.
Okay.
And wait, is it both of us?
Yeah, both of you can guess.
Okay.
You'll both get. You'll both get
Sweet.
to guess.
Do we guess after each card?
You can say if you want to hear another card or if you want to keep going, or if you have a guess. And you can stop me whenever you want.
How many guesses do we get?
We get 10. You get 10 cards.
Okay.
And if you can't get it in the 10 cards, I win.
Okay.
Is it Captain Sisay?
No.
Is it Urza's Battlethopter?
Karn the Great Creator is the first card. Let me give you the second card.
Yeah.
The second card is Drannith Magistrate.
And it's not Captain Sisay.
It's not Captain Sisay.
Heliod.
Is it Raf Capuchin?
It's not Raf. That's good. That's a good guess, though. You're not in the wilderness. The second or the third card, excuse me, is Soulless Jailer.
Is this just a Morath cEDH deck that's not on Collector Oof?
No. Let me give you the fourth card. It's Recruiter of the Guard.
It's not Heliod?
It's not Heliod.
What?
Yeah.
Is it Ao the Dawn Sky?
It's not Ao or Ao.
Yasharn?
You guys are doing
Yasharn's
good.
A good one.
Like you're doing good. You're just not quite there. Let me give you let me give you the next one. It's
been monocolored so far, right?
Yeah. Let me give you the next one. Ravages of War.
Oh God, is this Lavinia?
It's Lavinia.
You piece of shit.
When you said Raph, I felt like Lavinia was just sitting there like, don't look at me.
Man, I haven't, I know Lavinia's your thing, Cal, but I haven't seen a Lavinia deck in like so long.
Yeah.
It's just not on the top of my mind.
It's okay. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Well, let me change my top 10 in that case.
Yeah.
Let me give you a better opener deck. Okay. So I think you can get this with some of the first handful of them.
Okay.
So the first card I'll give you for this deck is Tinderwall. Okay.
My favorite dating app on a card.
Tinderwall. The second card is Rite of Flame. Okay.
There's like 17 decks this could be so far.
Yeah. I know.
Is it Dargo Thrasios?
It's not Dargo Thrasios. The next card is Ragavan Nimble Pilferer.
Is it Dargo Ikra?
It's not Dargo Ikra. I think
Najila?
this next one might help you out. Noble Hierarch.
Is it Najila?
It's Najila.
Yeah.
The other guesses I had there for you were Elvish Spirit Guide, Simian Spirit Guide, Dockside, Final Fortune, Jeweled Lotus, and Derevi. So it's like if you couldn't get it by Jeweled Lotus, I was going to be like, here it is. All right, so this is the last one. This is deck 3. Now this one might be a little challenge, but if your mind's eye is open and you have your cEDH brain completely turned on and you have the annals of cEDH history ready for you, you should be. So the first card that I'm going to give you on this,
it's when you're in fourth seat. You need to have the annals of cEDH.
Well, you're in the bottom of the turn order.
The bottom, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the first card from this deck is Cephalid Illusionist.
I mean, just breakfast Hulk, right? Or some sort of breakfast list, obviously, right?
Yeah. Some kind
maybe.
of Hulk combo.
Maybe.
Is this Growl Knock?
No, it's not Growl Knock. Let me give you the next one. It's Lightning Greaves.
Lightning Greaves?
It's Lightning Greaves.
My guess is still Growl Knock.
Yeah, for like Hermit Druid shit.
This isn't like some weird Sacred Druid build, is this?
You're close. All right.
Okay.
Let me give you the next one. Takanuma Abandoned Mire.
Is it like some weird?
Is
it some weird Muldrotha build?
You're in the neighborhood, Sam.
Okay.
Next card is Doomsday.
Oh, cEDH. Right.
Ian's got it. It's cEDH.
I hate that stupid deck.
The other cards I was going to give you were Vohar Vidilian Desecrator, Grisk the Hunger Tide. These are all cards that are in the deck list. Memory's Journey, Labman, Malevolent Hermit, and the last card I was going to give you was
this is a current updated cEDH list?
Yes. This is the one that's on the database.
Who's playing? It's on the database? Who's playing this?
I don't know, but it's odd.
I have questions.
Yeah, I mean, I also have questions.
You know, actually, if you're running the current database list, I provide cEDH coaching, and if you ever want to go over a deck list, I'm gonna get so many comments for that
one. You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and go ahead and say, hey, ROG Sci pilots, you might as well go ahead and sign up for it too, because I think you need it.
Wow.
Damn. A preview of coming attractions with your top 10, I'm sure.
Definitely not. No. Speaking of, so we are here to do our top 10 for the month of July.
Hell yeah, we are.
Last month we had, let's look at Ian's list here. First of all, Ian's honorable mention for the month of June was Flash Strategies Blanket.
I do have another honorable mention this month.
We'll get there.
You're supposed to have one every month. Ian, so that's a good thing.
So good for you.
Top 10 work. They're 11s.
Yeah. So your number 10 was Tayam Luminous Enigma. 9 was Atraxa Grand Unifier. Then at 8 you had Timna Malcolm. Then you had Rog Silas at 7. Sisay Weatherlight Captain at 6. Kinnan Bonder Prodigy at 5. Thras Bruce at 4. Timna Crom at 3. Najila the Blade Blossom at 2. And Tivit Seller of Secrets at 1. My 10 was, my honorable mention was Animar Soul of Elements, because it won, what was it?
Dude, it's a good deck.
SCG. It's actually surprisingly reasonable deck.
I face it like weekly in my pod.
It's so good. You've also played against this stupid ass deck and how unreasonably difficult it is to deal with.
Yes.
It's actually kind of annoying.
My weekly cEDH group, my weekly just general EDH group, we play cEDH games and casual, and somebody pilots Animar pretty much every week. And man, it can just be such a hard deck to interact with. It's kind of like ETB.WinCon, but so if you don't have anything to stop that, like, you're just kind of fucked. But man, it is frustrating.
And it's like hard as hell to remove Animar, because it's like, it's pro black and white. Jesus.
My two removal colors. And then it's also just one of those decks that is, I think, like, very straightforward and easy to pilot. I think it's a great deck if you're getting into cEDH to jump on and grab Animar. It's got good colors. It's got a very straightforward game plan. But because of that, like, the table will be getting stressed out about these decision points, and the Animar player is just like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to fucking play creatures, man.
I'm going to play this thing for 1 mana, even though it's 4 mana.
Exactly.
Swing.
But you just transported me into like 7 different games I've played. You remember how this used to cost 5 mana, but now it costs 1.
Now it costs 1.
You see my brilliance?
It works though. It's crazy.
My number 10 is a similar deck to that. It was my number 10 last month was Winota, Joiner of Forces.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 was Kinnan. 8 was Rog Silas. 7 was Tyam Luminous Enigma. 6 was Atraxa Grand Unifier. 5 was Sisay Witherlight Captain. 4 was Thrasios Bruce. 3 was Najila. 2 was Timna Krom. And 1 was Tivit. So let's go ahead and move into July. And we're going to start off because we're nice and we, my mom raised me correctly. Sam, since you are our guest, what is let's start with you. What is your honorable mention for the month of July?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate that you guys kicked off this series with Tyler from Play to Win. Mm-hmm. Then you got then guest, now co-host Ian on. And then, of course, the next logical step is Sam from the Howling Salt Mine podcast, cEDH expert extraordinaire.
You sell yourself short. You do know what you're talking about a vast majority of the time.
we do talk about cEDH a lot, and Mike, my co-host Mike, and I are like big cEDH boys. So
yeah, Mike is the reason I play Sisay. So.
Yep, and I'll be talking about that's a preview of coming attractions. I'll be talking about Sisay
I wonder if anybody's going to mention that, Dad.
So my honorable mentions, starting off my list, I have 2. I'm cheating like how Ian did last time. I feel like guests are allowed to bend the rules just a little bit. I have 2 here, and it's Tyam and Winota, and I have them here for different reasons, similar but different reasons. So Tyam, it's an interesting deck. It has some really kind of unique strategies. Ian talked about it very well in the last episode, especially like being able to win off land drops and land activated abilities and just kind of weird things that are challenging to interact with. It's doing quite well in tournaments right now, but I think it's kind of like punching above its weight class right now. And I don't really think it is that good. I think to me, it feels like Magda in 2022, where everybody's like, how do I deal with this deck? And eventually they're going to pick up on it, and it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. There's still some challenges there with like the partially known information, with the fact that you get to like mill value and bring something back. And it's sort of like, well, what's going to come? It could pop off at any moment, but I just don't quite think it's really a top 10 deck. It just hits on some really strange angles, and I think that stops a lot of people.
Yeah. I think the one difference I see between that and Magda is Magda had the Marchesa event where it did the thing. Yeah. And then immediately everybody became super aware of it, and then it immediately stopped doing well. Like, it was very quickly that people picked up on what Magda was doing.
Whereas Tyam has like multiple tournaments under its belt.
Tyam's been doing this for like months now at this point. And that's where I've kind of been like, all right, maybe it has a little bit more zhuzh than I thought it did.
Well, I think there's also just an element of like, if a deck isn't going super turbo-y, kind of like how Magda can, and if it's just kind of like accumulating slow value, especially in like non-blue and non-red colors, I think it does fly under the radar a lot more than you'd think. Like Abzan decks just don't seem like they should be scary in cEDH. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people who just aren't taking Tyam seriously and aren't interacting with it early enough. And then it just accumulates this value and kind of snowballs.
I think that's a big part of it too.
It's weird because my experience was that at Mox Masters, people were taking it extraordinarily seriously.
Really?
Like everybody at Mox Masters this month when I was playing in it, everybody was on top. Like everybody was super aware. They were like, okay, we got to deal with this. We got to do X, Y, and Z. And the Tyam decks were just kind of like, it felt very much to me like how Ian described Kinnan last month, where it was just like, okay, sure, whatever. And it just kind of kept doing its thing. I also think it's important to note with Tyam that it's like 2 pilots who are just going on a tear right now with it.
Yeah.
And so
that's not true.
Is there more?
Yeah, no. So the brothers are doing very well with it, but
Right.
actually, the person who won the whole tournament with it wasn't either of them. There's actually been several pilots that are not the Tuco or
Well,
Pixel.
my point was when I was looking at EDH top 16, it was like you see the same names very frequently, where it's like other decks. You don't really see that.
It's more than 2 people though. I think it's like 4 or 5 people.
Okay, sure.
I think a lot of it has to do with that are like the interaction suite that your average cEDH deck has trouble dealing with Tyam because of the recursion ability. So, having like a lot of single target removal, which is predominantly what most cEDH decks are running, you're going to invest a bunch of resources to remove one thing, and then Tyam can probably bring it back. And I think it kind of ties into your previous episode where you guys were talking about like board wipes and mass removal effects in cEDH. And I think those probably need to be getting played more. And I think decks like Tyam that are little Rube Goldberg-y and have a ton of pieces that synergize together are going to be a little bit worse if that moves into the meta.
Yeah, I very much agree. Ian, what is your...
Oh, wait, my other one was Winota.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, Winota.
So where with Tyam, I think it's overperforming. And, I think Winota's underperforming. It's kind of like off of my top 10 for the exact same reason. Basically, the things that you guys have said in previous episodes, I think Winota is just such a boogeyman that when it comes down, everybody is like, okay, like unholster your guns. Let's get fucking ready for Winota.
Abysmal.
Now. Exactly. But it's a really good deck. Like when I play against it casually, just, wherever, it's awesome. But it just doesn't have the chops in tournament play anymore. And I don't see a ton of people bringing it that much either. So,
yeah. We definitely had that period where everybody was so aware of it, and then a bunch of people started playing it, and then everybody kind of like adjusted, and then
they over adjusted, but then for some reason now we're there.
Yeah. Well, it has a bit of that like Tyam factor where there's some like unknown information about how good the flip is going to be. You know what I mean? Right. And I think decks like that tend to get over-evaluated and almost should get over-evaluated a little bit because you don't know if that next stack piece that drops is just going to absolutely wreck you.
Yeah.
Well, that's like you were talking about that with Atali too, right? Like where Atali had some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I literally had flips. Like I played it again last night, where I was like, I had 2 flips in a row that it was all stinky garbage, and then I've had multiple flips now where it's like, oh, I just got a game-winning combo when I had nothing.
Cool, thanks. Oh yeah, like Oracle from you, Demonic Consultation from you. Yeah, thanks, like guys.
I flipped into a Hullbreaker horror during one of my pods in that matchup, and I was like, oh, okay, well I have all these 0 mana rocks because I tried to cast Atali, so I guess I'm gonna win.
Ian, are those sticky notes, dude?
Yes, I am.
Oh my god, I thought you were doing like some crazy magic card shuffle. I was like, holy shit.
No,
Ian's
he's just
like,
making Ian's over there,
he's
like
just ruining your audio
trying.
Quality.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's actively trying to make my
job. If this picks up on the audio,
you can very clearly hear it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was just sitting over here like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
That reminds me of when we had Lauren, MTG Hot Dog, on our podcast as a guest. And at one point I just keep hearing this clicking sound. And I'm like, Lauren, are you like clicking a pen cap on and off a pen over and over again? And he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I am. I'm just fidgeting. I haven't been doing that for long. And I was like, you've only been doing it for 10 minutes. Don't even worry.
I'm sitting here playing with my AirPods case while we do this. So
I definitely did have to yell at one of my friends because he was vaping during our episode. And I was like, I can hear every puff, you idiot.
Damn, that's a loud rig, dude. That's some loud cotton that he's blasting.
Vape niche.
He was hitting that cotton.
He's just brutally coughing right into the microphone. Like, oh man.
I'm so cool because I vape. And you're like, Matt, it's been 10 minutes. Please stop saying that into the microphone.
And that kind of like that sound when they like hold it in, it's like Oh man,
Vape Nation
life.
dog.
Vape Nation.
Ian, your honorable mention for the month of July.
Okay, so I have like, I literally, as we were talking about this, because you reminded me of my list from last month, and I had Dawnmaker at 10, but I actually took it off my top 10 right now.
Wow.
No.
Tell me about that.
And it is, so, well, I feel like because Cal and I are here every month, right? Our job is sort of to report on what is the top 10 of the format actively, right? Like what is doing well. And it could just be straight up that nobody's playing Dawnmaker right now, right? And in these most recent tournaments, but it did not get a single top result this month. And so for me,
it just didn't get played this month is what happened.
Yeah, and it probably just didn't get played, right? But like I have a hard time like not being like objective and being like, well, I didn't see it top at all. So like I'm just gonna put it to the side, say it's probably still amazing. But since we're rocking this weird like in between with the way we do these lists, I think because we're here consistently, it's not always like if I just express my opinion on what I think is objectively the best decks in the format every single month, then it would be the same thing.
It's just the same 10.
Right? Yeah. So mine's more temporally locked. So this is about time, actually.
There we go. The Mind Sculptors is actually just a really elaborate like Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, you guys should have named yourself after like Teferi and not Jace, because Teferi is like a time mage, some brand consistency there.
See, but the problem is that Jace the Mind Sculptor is my favorite card. So
okay, yeah. How do you feel about Jace as a character, though?
Oh, I love Jace.
Really?
I think he gets shit on for no reason.
He's got like, Superman syndrome for me. He's just like,
he's got
Boy
Zuko
Scout
vibes for me, I feel like, but not in a good way.
Zuko's cool. What are you talking about? Ian.
Yeah, I think Zuko's the biggest fucking sad boy. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's what makes him great.
And was like,
have you been seen what I like think is cool?
Have you even seen the beach?
Where
the
he
beach
stands
episode?
on top of a mountain and cries because lightning won't strike him, and he goes, "You've never held back before," screaming to God. Okay,
yeah,
so
dude.
you know what? No,
yeah,
so Ian, are you saying? Hold on, Ian, are you saying that when Vegeta did that and became a Super Saiyan, you didn't think that was cool?
I've never watched Dragon Ball. I'm so sorry.
What? Oh my god! Cancel.
I thought it was cool.
Thank you, Callahan.
You're welcome. It's okay. I'm watching through One Piece right now, and my current crush is Zoro, because he's such a vibe. I'm like,
he's great.
He is the first like male character I've ever seen in like a show where I'm like, yeah, that's how I want to look. If I could just be Zoro, that'd be great.
I used to have like really close cropped dyed green hair, so I had like a Zorro look for a while.
He very much has
too powerful.
He has what I call the Billy Joe Armstrong if he was like a samurai vibe.
But like pre-American Idiot. Right?
Yes, I'm talking like Dookie.
Yeah,
Billy Joe Armstrong, right? Like
100%.
Bleach blonde hair.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's the vibe I get from
Zoro. Yeah, One Piece is fucking awesome.
Yeah, One Piece is great. I just finished Alabasta arc this morning.
Nice. That's a good one.
And I was sobbing. The last episode, I was just like sobbing, and I was just like, "Fuck this show! What the fuck?"
I've been reading the manga, and I'm on chapter like 708 or something, and I'm trying to like crush through the rest of it before, what is that that special date, August 8th or something like that.
Is that like when it ends or whatever?
No, it's when I think the episode with Gear 5 is going to be released, and I want to watch that shit.
Interesting.
That'll all make sense as you continue reading.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, I'm still back here. We like just met Smoker and
nice.
Like
those
all
are good
that
days.
Stuff, so
I did watch 120 episodes of the anime, and
dude, you were just about to get there, man.
Yeah, only like 600 left. See,
honestly, just another 120, and you'd be really in the good shit.
I almost hopped off before our long park because I was just like, dude, the show just keeps like. It's like kind of all right, but it's like Batier. I hated Syrup Village. The first two arcs are fine. but then it gets to Arlong Park, and that's when I was just like, okay, I'm in. And that one got me. And then in the arc in between Arlong Park and what's Alabasta, the like in between arc is so boring, where they're like on the fucking island with the two giants. And I'm like, can we do something interesting, please? And then
great.
They finished that arc, and I was like, thank you. We're doing something interesting.
So what I think we should do is like one of those speed up sound effects, and then we can put like a little caption that says they started talking about One Piece.
Yeah.
Dude, SpongeBob already is a great soundbite you can steal for that. 2 hours later.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Dawn Waker's in your honorable mention slot.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my other honorable mention was just like the card Tevesh, because there has been a couple top cuts with Tevesh Crom and a couple with Tevesh Thrasios, and I just think it's starting to show up more and more. It might be a bit of like, this deck would probably be better with Tymna, but it also might not be, so I don't know.
Yeah. Tevesh is a weird one. I haven't played against many Tevesh decks. I played against a Tevesh Kodama Pox deck that I talk about as often as I can because it was fucking insane and blew my mind. Like it. Pox is an insane spell, but I haven't seen Tevesh too much.
I have such a love-hate relationship with Tevesh, because when it first came out, I was like, nobody's going to play this. And then Rebel built the thing with it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so I got really high on it. And then I feel like since then, it's just been like this slow descent back down to this isn't very good. And that's kind of where I'm at with it, where I'm just kind of like, I could play Tevesh, or I could do something else. And I have enjoyed something else significantly more. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I'm going to play a fringe partner like this, I'm going to play Arden or something that's more like interesting, I feel like.
Yeah, or even like Armix, I think might be a better mono black partner. I don't know. Tevesh is just kind of weird.
Very underexplored, to be honest.
I agree.
Yeah, I think, I'm a huge fan, as Ian knows, I'm a huge fan of like removal in the command zone. I think it's incredibly powerful and underrated.
Yeah.
Me too. My honorable mention for the month of July was a finalist of Mox Masters, and that is the card Nimrus.
Oh yeah.
I would like to see this deck get played more, because I actually think it's really good. But we talked about this a little bit last week. I have been. Let's just also like put context. It was the most winning deck between both seasons of the MLC. It had the best record of all decks in the MLC. It also was in both finals of the MLC. It has now gone to a couple finals, but it's kind of sporadic because people don't play it a whole lot. The way I describe it is it's what Rashmi wishes it was, because it's Rashmi with win cons. And so Nimrus is a deck that I really like. I think that it has a lot of advantages because your commander is just really good. I believe, if I recall correctly, it has flash, doesn't it?
It does.
So it's like, it just is, you don't have to take a turn off with it. Like, it's just exactly what you want out of a Dimir control commander. And honestly think you should be playing that more in general. I'm a big fan of Nimrus. So keep an eye out on Nimrus. Hopefully the fact that it top forward will give it a little bit more, some more eyes on it. And that's hopefully I can also put some.
Well, I think it ties into what you guys were talking about in last episode, or your last monthly review episode, which is like the power of flash spells and just being able to kind of really pick your moment. And Nimrus does that very well.
Yeah.
And to have a very powerful draw go deck with like essentially card advantage in the command zone, and to have
also,
that in Dimir colors is very strong.
the first time we're able to talk about it on this podcast. But we got a third shimmer mirror too, which is crazy.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
In the new, yep.
Yeah. And I was like, well, it's funny because like a part of being an ambassador is that we get the product a little early, right? So I cracked it open. I was looking through, and I was like, oh my god, this is insane, and I can't tell anybody.
What's the name of that card again? Does anyone
it's something
know
shimmering cicada, something like that?
Yeah, it's like it's in the new Eldrazi precon. If people at home don't know what we're talking about, but it's essentially a shimmer mirror.
So let's get into this top 10. Number 10.
Let's do it.
Sam, what is your number 10 for the month of July?
It is a weird one. And I'm ready for you guys to recoil. But my number 10, and again, this is like based on my play experiences. I looked a little bit at EDH Top 16, did some research about like conversion rates and whatnot. But I feel like I have to put this on just because I'm such a lover of this style of deck. And my number 10 is Tymna Tana.
Tymna Tana. All right.
Yep.
That's a respectable deck.
Yeah, I mean,
any specific variation?
I mean, I love the Blood Pod build that has like Kiki combo wins.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think Kiki's really powerful and doesn't see as much play anymore. And I think because of that, it can still get some wins out of nowhere. Sylvan Safekeeper is a great card. And that's like maybe one of the best protection pieces. And people have been playing that a lot lately. And it really slaps in Tymna Tana. It's also just like everything that I love about Naya stacks. And I will mention it. I'm like a big Marath Will of the Wild player. It's like my pet fringe cEDH deck. And Tymna Tana is kind of like the version of that if it was actually going to be a decent competitive list. And I used to play Blood Pod. Like I'm predominantly like a stacks player when it comes to cEDH. And my stacks journey started with, I think it was like Rurik Thar or something like that. And then I played Blood Pod for a really long time and eventually shifted into Marath. And it's just an awesome deck. I will say, like, the numbers do kind of back it up a little bit. It's got a pretty solid conversion rate. If you look at EDH Top 16, it's just above Thrasios Dargo with a handful of like fewer recorded games. So I don't think a lot of people are bringing it. But it did top 16 in the majority of the Mox Masters tournaments that happened this year. So it's got like a pretty good record there.
Lisby is a big part of that.
Definitely. But I noticed that Lisby has like a pretty awesome track record with it. But I think it's a really powerful deck. But also, you know, credit to that pilot. Stacks decks are challenging to play in tournament settings and just challenging to play in general because so often you drop a stacks piece, shoot yourself in the foot, enable another person to win, and you lose. And that is like the real challenge of playing stacks.
Stacks is one of those archetypes where you don't really know you've made a mistake until like 3 or 4 turns later. And then you're like, oh, I should have done something entirely different. But it's so late to correct that ship.
Right.
It's so true.
Ian, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is Malcolm Tymna. It deserves to be on this top 10. It like not a lot of people play it because I think like the de facto is like, oh, why aren't you playing Blue Farm, right?
Or Tivit in those colors.
Or Tivit, yes, exactly. And that's a good question. But at the same time, I also respect the fact that like the deck has its benefits, like Malcolm being able to curve very efficiently, like those turn 1 Malcolms being a priority for the list. I don't know. It's a deck that is just solid. Like it does what it's supposed to do. It shows up. It gets Tymna draws. It has a bit of, you know, synergy with some pirate stuff. And apart from that, like it is just trying to be as efficient as possible. It is a deck built around efficiency. It's a good Christian
commander pairing.
It's also the only homie out here still trying to represent Doomsday. So
what are you talking about? I just told you a Sultai deck that's playing Doomsday.
Yeah, dude, you forgot about Sidisi?
So
Come on.
My email's open, comedianmtg@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Discord or Twitter if you need any help with it.
Man. And if that makes you salty, my email's open for the Howling Salt Mine podcast. You can tell us how pissed off that made you.
This is so great because anything that I say, I could just direct them to Sam. So my number 10 is also a deck that I had in my 8th spot, like Ian did last month, because that's where that Tibna Malcolm was. Mine is Rog Sai for number 10. I almost took it out of my top 10.
Yeah.
Wow. That
it would be bold. And I was not feeling quite that bold this month. But I'm getting there. My take on Rog Sai is that I can't see this thing. I've never seen this deck cross the finish line, like, successfely.
At the same time, like, it keeps making the top
like
cut, right?
one,
so, like,
maybe.
At what point?
But that's the thing is,
that's fair. But like,
I keep seeing it do really well in the Swiss, and then it gets to the turn or to the actual, like, okay, now we're playing big boy Magic, and it just can't hang. And so, like, for me, it's like, that's fine. Like, you can, like, you're, for my people who listen, know sports. Let's talk about some football teams that can make the playoffs.
We're getting the reference.
Cal, this is I need to pause you here now that I'm your co-host. Is this a metaphor that's worth the very long explanation for the people who don't know sports?
Ian, how else are they going to mark that box on their bingo card? How else are they going to mark their bingo card? You know, you got to get the sports reference every episode.
I haven't mentioned LeBron yet.
Oh yeah, but my theater reference got cut last time.
It didn't. It made it.
Oh,
your Manny Patinkin reference very much made it.
It's cool.
And like Barbara Streisand or whatever you said.
Yeah. It was Meryl Streep. Excuse you.
Barbara Streisand.
But basically, my what I'm trying to get at is there are like teams in the NFL, right, who can make the playoffs pretty consistently every year, but aren't quite good enough to get farther than that. And that's fine. Like, that's good. That's a great way to sell tickets and make money, right? For a commander deck, and if you're wanting to win a championship, you want a Super Bowl, I would probably recommend something that can go the distance, because I don't think Rog Sai is that deck.
That's fair.
And so that's like, I think it has the ability to get you into a good position. Like, if you could play like 2 different decks from your Swiss to the tournament bracket part.
That was the thing.
Like, if you could do that, Rog Sai would be like so good, but it just can't convert once it gets into the playoff portion of it.
Yeah, I've only ever seen top 4s at most.
I mean, when I was looking, I couldn't see a single like actual victory in like that like took down the tournament. So I was like, okay, clearly something is not working. So for number 9, Sam, what is your number 9?
So I hemmed and hawed over this one. I was very torn. I ended up going with Dargo Thrasios for my number 9. I was really considering Malcolm Tana, just kind of 2 different teamer pirate themed decks. And I think they're both really valid, but Dargo Thrasios is the one that I'm enjoying more right now. I got to play it for the first time a few weeks ago and didn't have a ton of experience with it. But since then, I've kind of fallen in love with the build. I think it has really explosive win cons, and these angles with Dargo wins are sometimes very hard to see, like what the combo is really going to be. And I think that the fact that it can pivot and fall back on Thrasios, which is like pretty much one of the best mid-range grinding engines in cEDH, just to be able to fall back on that makes it a very powerful deck. It does like fold to a lot of stacks. And I play in some pretty stacks heavy pods. So, you know, I think it has its strengths and its weaknesses, but it's pretty powerful. Similarly, like Malcolm Tana, I think could easily fit in here. Glinthorn's obviously a super powerful combo.
It's just been
and like, Kiki, it's got Kiki, Sylvan Safekeeper, and Spellskite, baby. Like you guys were talking about Spellskite the other day. Like Sylvan Safekeeper and Spellskite are crazy protection pieces.
They're insane together. Yeah, I feel like Malcolm Tana is weirdly like absent.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
People just stopped playing it.
I have not heard. anything about it.
I think a lot of people, and this might be why you're not seeing Dawnwaker, I think a lot of people are getting some cold feet with Orcish Bowmasters and like heavy dork decks and kind of being like, well, where is this going to land? And if my main strategy is like dump out dorks, produce value, then that's going to be a challenging strategy. Whereas these other decks with dorks like, Najeela and others that we're going to talk about can pivot easily away from that if there is a Bowmaster down.
Yeah. I was a little bit more concerned about Bowmasters last month, and I will spoil this. I'm significantly less concerned about Bowmasters this month.
Same.
Yeah, I got to play against it for the first few times kind of recently, and I will say it's really rough. I will also say Marath Will of the Wilds kills it every single time.
Yeah, like my experience with it is it warps the game around itself once it comes down. Yeah, but it's not as oppressive as you think it is.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I was underwhelmed by Fairy Mastermind because of how little it triggered. So I don't know why I was like as worried about Bowmasters. And I think it was just a lot of people describing. I think the people I was talking to were in a little heavier mid-range metas, right? I still think it's like probably more of a problem for casual.
I still think it's a problem for casual. I still think it's going to eat a ban. But
I think you just hit these situations in a cEDH game where Bowmasters is down. And then like some other pieces there, like the One Ring, and just fully enables Bowmasters to just be like zip, zip, zapping and hitting a ton of stuff. Yeah. So that can happen, but generally speaking, you know, it's going to be like a 2 for 2.
I do think I think I totally lost my train of thought. I agree with you. Was what I was trying to say.
I see.
Ian, your number 9 for the month of July.
Yeah. My number 9 has had a fall from grace as of late, and I believe you and I are mostly responsible for that. That is Captain Zisse.
Really? That's super interesting.
Yes.
I'll reserve my comments.
So I played Zisse at Chaos last weekend, or I didn't play it. I played against it a bunch after
I played it a
popped the video
bunch at Mox Masters.
And I think we are. I'm concerned that people are doing the Winota thing a little bit with Zisse, where they're gonna overreact to certain tutors. But I also think like there's gonna be more people playing it right now, and I think you will see Zisse do worse nowadays because there's a lot of people who like didn't really heed my instructions at the start of that video and recognize the fact that it's a really, really complicated deck.
It's a Rube Goldberg
and then just try and pick it up. Yeah, and it's like you need to know to pilot the deck to its maximum potential, you need to know every single ability of every single planeswalker in the deck, where their statics come in line, what it means to reset a creature, like all of these things, like how do you turn a flicker line into an untapped flicker line? Like all of these things are how you maximize the deck. And I still punt that stuff, right? And the people like picking up this deck are like, just it does the thing in the dockside. And it's like, okay, but you don't always have a dockside for 7. And when you don't have a dockside for 7, the deck gets a lot.
That's one of the
more skill intensive decks in cEDH right now. To really, really shine with it. Mine's further up the list, and I'll like really dump my thoughts when we get there. But it's interesting that it's fallen for you.
Mine's not a whole lot farther up, but my number 9 is Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. Still same place as it was last month. I think it's good. Ian, look at its conversion rate. Look at its win rate. It's fucking terrible. It's 16%. Call me when it gets over 20. Like it really it has such a bad win rate overall. And I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. But there was one thing that I noticed you said last month that I think that you also said about Zisse, and you kind of said it about Kinnan, is that when people play Kinnan and they get good at Kinnan, underline that as many times as you feel necessary. Those people do really good with it, and they swear by it. And I think that is a very important reason of why I don't have it in the top 5. because I don't think it's
That's
like
fair.
a
That's fair.
deck where people can pick it up and do really well. Granted, I do have a deck in my top 5 that is a little bit more like struggles, but I think just because of what's going on in the meta, I kind of have to have it up there. Kinnan just isn't converting. I think you have to practice a ton on it in order to.
I think it is converting. Like there are, I've yet to see a tournament in a while where there's not.
Okay, but what did I just get done saying about Roxai? Like, yeah, it's
no,
like
I understand. I'm just saying, like it is showing up. Is my point, right?
But that's kind of my point. It's one of those things where I still have it in my top 10. It's number 9. I think that it's a great deck if you put in the reps. If you put in the reps and you practice and you play the deck a ton. If you're somebody like me and you don't get to play cEDH like every other day or every night or something like that, where you are going to be able to practice and like get those reps in, probably pick something else, because this is a deck that really requires you to know the deck. And that's kind of how I feel about Kinnan.
I think one of the things with Kinnan, and I don't have it in my top 10. Sorry, Ian. I just don't encounter the deck. Is he also drunk,
or is that only me?
I don't really encounter it too much, but I will say I think what you're getting at, Cal, is that Kinnan has these like subtle points where you need to shift your strategy as your pieces are getting interacted with, and I think those are really, really hard to see when you're brand new to the deck. There's a point where it's like, okay, am I going to be going for my combos? Am I going to be going for Kinnan activations? Should I just be dropping big creatures for value? And I think those decision points are like really key in succeeding with the deck, and that shit is hard to pick up on.
So many players I've seen who are like not exceptional Kinnan pilots would be like, yeah, you just jam Basalt as soon as possible. And it's like, no, that's no. Like,
I think it looks a lot more straightforward than it actually is. You're like, oh, you make mana and you win the game, right? Like that's how Kinnan plays. I will say shout out to Kinnan for the Mirage Mirror combo, which is probably the dankest and weirdest combo in cEDH right now.
So
I fucking love it. Fucking love it.
I would also describe it as dank.
Shout out to Pongo on that one, right?
Like, that shit is so good. That like makes my brain light up in a cool way.
Well, Sam, moving on up to the number 8 spot. What is your number 8 deck?
My number 8 deck is Magda.
Jesus Christ,
you mother!
Tyler had it at number 8. You have it at Tyler 8.
Don't have Kinnan on there, but you have goddamn Magda. Sam,
fucking great, dude. Okay, hear me out.
I'm on Ian's side on this one.
That's totally fine. Maybe it's not converting in tournaments. I know people are like very wary of it now, but Magda is an incredibly powerful deck. It can like pivot between these really aggressive strategies and these stacks heavy strategies. And it can do it with the win con on the stack, like with the tutor on the stack. The interaction comes down and you're like, all right, I'm going to shift to stacks and slow this game down a little bit and continue to move forward. I also think Magda, there's going to be a couple lists to talk about like this, but Magda is a list that has these like very strange interaction points. And while people are learning what those are with like clock combo and the dragon combos and things like that, Magda is one of those lists that is guaranteed to continue to evolve in the meta of cEDH, because every set that prints a dragon, every set that prints a bomb artifact like Portal to Phyrexia, we've kind of opened our eyes to like, we could just fucking slam that in Magda and do great. Like every set that prints an awesome artifact or dragon, you can evaluate it for Magda. And exactly. Or a shapeshifter or something. And the fact that exists with this deck, I think even though people learn these weird lines, a new release is going to come out and there's going to be a new weird line that you don't know. And that is going to have it continue to be very powerful. I will also say it folds to a lot of removal and folds to some stacks. Mike, my co-host on the show, he's also in my weekly pod. He jams Magda a ton and for a long time was running the table, which is literally why I built Marath Will of the Wild. So every time Magda could come down, I could just ping it for 1 and kill it and stop the deck. Yeah. So like it's got some pretty big Achilles heels, but I think it's just a wicked cool deck and it's going to be relevant for a long time.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Someone take that soundbite. Ian just agreed with me, everybody. Ian thinks he agrees completely.
No, cancel.
Well, Ian, this is your chance to
No, I didn't say completely. Whoa.
Ian.
Cut that.
Big difference there, Sam.
So since you agree, your number 8 is Magda, right?
Yes, a deck I definitely have on this top 10 is Magda. No, at number 8, I have Rogsai.
Mm-hmm.
Rogsai, it keeps putting up results, but everything Cal complained about earlier, I agree with. The deck is very strong. I have zero complaints about anyone who plays it. They
can't do math,
deck.
though.
It's going to get top 16 every day.
And all their cards are sleeved upside down. It's weird.
Yeah. And they only tap at 45 degrees.
Whoa, there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting carried away, Ian.
No, you sociopath. You and Alan with your like, oh, it's tapped, and you're like, you've moved it 3 centimeters.
The cards are only 3 centimeters wide. That's like a lot.
It's like you're like, oh, it's tapped. Like,
oh, you thought that I had that available? Oh no, I haven't been holding up anything. What are you talking about? No, I Rogsai is.
Yeah. But Rogsai is powerful. Like it's strong. It's explosive. It's if you want to go burr, it goes burr. Normally, I would say if you want to go burr, it's the best at going burr. But asterisk on that one. We'll see what happens at number 7. Anyways, pass the mic.
My number 8 is this is where Sisei's fall from grace is for me. I had Sisei up at number 5 last month. I have Sisei down here at number 8. And very much the same thing as what Ian said. I think people took up the deck and did the thing where they were like, all right, I'm going to play it. And it's really simple. You just land a dockside. And there's just like, there's so many people who think I want them to ban dockside just so people can like turn their brains back on. So like, I miss when people thought about their lines instead of just being like, oh, good dockside, I won. Like, I want people to go back to thinking about mana. Because it's very interesting how many people just are like, oh, I land a dockside, the game's over, right?
Right.
So, yeah, Sisei here at 8. I don't have much more to add to what Ian said other than, hey, maybe let the people who know what they're doing play this deck and then choose something else. I'm not saying, listen, if this is what you want to learn, go for it. But just know you're going to have you got to learn it. You can't just pick it up and play it. You have to learn it.
Right. You need like such an insane amount of reps for that deck to succeed. It's really crazy.
And before somebody comes and tells me I'm gatekeeping or tells me that I am telling people what they should and shouldn't play, here's what I am actually doing. What I'm doing is I'm setting people up for success. I'm not gatekeeping you. I'm telling you that, hey, if you don't have the time nor the energy to put in a ton of reps and learn this deck inside and out, then maybe this isn't the deck for you. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you not to play it. If you want to play it, go for it. I'm just telling you this. I'm literally just giving you a warning. That's it.
Yeah. Also, to those people that would say you're gatekeeping, we can't even hear you because we're on the other side of this gate right now. You know?
Yeah, we're not even here. We're in the past. Like,
No, and we all know
no time travel talk.
Gates traditionally are unable to pass sound through.
Well,
right,
I mean,
Sam?
it's
so
like a really nice gate.
It's a nice gate.
It's right there at 40 decibels.
We actually,
it's really
it's made out of audio foam.
Oh, okay. But you just said it was a nice gate.
Yes, as I look up at my like $10 audio foam nailed to the wall.
That is more than I got.
You're like, hey, it's a big gate.
So number 7 for you, Sam, as we work our way up this list, what is your 7th deck?
It's Rogsai. So, I mean, you know, I agree
We're
with
all
what you
in
guys
agreement
are saying.
then.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting list. I mean, I don't, again, like a lot of this stuff is based on my personal experience. I'm not putting too much of a competition or a tournament results slant on my list, but I used to play Rogsai a lot. It's a wicked fun deck. very, very straightforward. It just zooms, and that's usually what you do. I think the thing that I never liked about the list was that the mid-game grind was always kind of a bummer.
Oh, but Sam, haven't you heard? We play Ristic Study.
But the other thing is that, like, the fact that Silas is such a bummer in the command zone, I just like, it's really hard for me to want to play that deck. And Rog is great because he's so fast, but it's just like, man, like a Bowmaster is just going to come down, and guess what it's going to hit? The thing that you cast on turn one that has 1 toughness. Like, it's
I had a delightful experience when I was playing Arden Silas once. And I was playing up against somebody who was playing Rog Silas. And I had Arden out, and I had a Skull Clamp out, and every turn they played their Rogue Rack.
Amazing.
And I was like, hey, thanks for the free cards, champ. And I was just like, they were like, why do you keep skull clamping this? I was like, well, you keep replaying your Rogue Rack.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want to pay 2 mana to give me, cards, I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah. I'm a really big fan of Jessica Silas. After I played Rogsai for a bit, I shifted to Jessica Silas. Granted, again, like, I love removal in the command zone. I love an infinite mana sink in the command zone. I think it just has like some style and mid-range grind that the regular Rog Silas deck doesn't have. Still wicked powerful. Still in my top 10. Just not that high,
Yeah. Your number 7, Ian.
My number 7 is, speaking of fast decks, Dihada.
Interesting.
Mardu Summer's real. I really do. I think this deck is fragile. It's more fragile than Rogsai, but it's cleaner in certain aspects because Dihada is able to, or I don't even know if cleaner
grind a lot better than Rogsai can.
I disagree thoroughly. The lack of S% or not S%, Mystic Gamora and Ristic Study. I think this deck has no grind to it because I've played against it now multiple times against competent pilots. I would argue, and every time it gets under everybody. That's what the deck was designed. I mean, I've talked to the deck designers, right? The whole point of Dihada is to get under the Ristic Studies and under the Remoras, right? And like just silence off and go quick, right? Which it does that. It does that very effectively. I don't think it has much to any mid to late game. I think it has stuff it can do because Mardu Colors allows a little bit of longevity in comparison to something like the Grixis Shell, right? But like it's genuinely just, it's quick. Like I saw a pretty clean turn 2 the other day, and there's turn 1 Bergie untapped, win the game, and I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
like it's and Dihada's ability to just get those early breaches online helps a lot, and the fact that it's a turbo breach deck. It's not a turbo ad nauseum deck, and I think that helps the deck a lot because breach is a lot more digestible early in the game and gets hit.
I also
by
think
stuff,
people are starting to realize that Turbo Naz is not nearly as good in the long term as Turbo Breach, and that Breach is just a much more like sustainable like game plan.
Yeah. It's about which one's sort of the end game, which one's sort of the backup plan, right? So
that's interesting.
But yeah, no, I've been.
How do you feel about that compared to like other Mardu decks that are out right now? Like like Mad Farm.
Nobody's playing is the issue.
Dylan's got one that he's playing
Mad
right
Farm
now.
Actually,
that is Tibna Jessica.
Mad Farm has been played around for a little bit, and it's doing pretty well. They're doing sort of the Rogsai thing where they're down to like 24 lands,
super greedy.
And I think it's definitely explosive and has a lot of potential, and it does the thing. It's definitely very different. I know.
Eat your fruits and vegetables, kids.
I want candy.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. Like it's working, right? I haven't seen a 28 land Mad Farm deck do well in a long time, but I have seen these 24 land ones. So like, kind of hard to argue with results.
Well, it's interesting to hear that like this deck is so explosive because when I think of Mardu, I think of like mid-range grind.
Yeah,
but I also think of like turn after turn jamming win attempts down people's throats, and it's like, okay, here's like my turn 2 win. That didn't work. I'm going to go for my turn 3 win with some slightly different pieces. That didn't work. Turn 4 win. Okay, I'm out of the game. You know,
it really feels like what Rog Timna wishes it was. You know what I mean? Like Rog Timna really wanted to be what Dihada is, and Dahada really,
Yes,
I think,
agreed.
fills that role a
Rog
little
Timna. Are
bit.
people playing Rog
Yeah, because
Timna?
when Dihada was made, I tried to make
Yeah.
Rog Timna, and I was like, oh yeah, no, it's just
Yeah.
Dihada's
I mean,
cleaner.
Dihada's super cool. It shows up in a lot of Sisei lists just because it's such
Mhm.
an enabler and a great stepping stone in
Mhm.
combos with Sisei. So
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Dahada's very good.
it's a good card.
My number 7 is one that was on my top 10. Then I took it off. Then I put it back on. As that's Dargo Thrasios.
Nice.
I played against it a bunch at Mox Masters, and I have to say, and then I goldfished it a bunch, and then I played it once with a buddy of mine online, and the deck makes me think of Dawnwaker a lot.
Yeah.
And it feels like it
They're very
feels
similar.
like Dawnwaker, but it also feels like if Dawnwaker could just get out in front of everybody really fast. Like, not that Dawnwaker can't, but it feels like this deck is more designed to be able to just throw up a long streak down the sideline and just your wide receivers that fast you could just do it. It feels like Dargo Thrasios has that capability with it, where it's just like it's just so fast it could just get up underneath people, and then it also, like you were saying earlier, Sam, has one of the best grind engines in the game.
Yeah.
It's in great colors. The only downside to it is you don't get white, and I think in this economy that's kind of a bummer. Not a boner, it's a bummer.
I think the other problem,
I almost said boner again, I'm not gonna lie.
I think the other issue with Dargo, specifically Dargo combos, is that like you pop off once with Dargo, and if it gets stopped, you can basically never ever cast Dargo again, because if you get like 10 iterations of Dargo casts, like there's no, like they need to chain together from one Dargo
There's
cast
no
to the
world
next.
where you're like,
there's no way where you're like, well, I'll just have, you know, all these permanents I can sack. Like sometimes you can with Dockside and like getting that extra Dockside value, but it's very
but sometimes you're like, oh, Dargo costs 17. It's like there's no way
the Dargo math it becomes very hard to work around, which can play in your favor sometimes, because people you can have like 2 or 4 command tacks on a Dargo, and people just cannot see the angle that you're coming from when you cast it in, and that does have a lot of strength.
I played against it. I was so impressed by it every single time I played against it. Cool. I was just like, this deck is so cool. Like it's just fun. I thought it was very much of a glass cannon. Like it either pops off or it doesn't. And then I watched it sit there and lay down a training grounds and sit there and grind like a champ. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. It was exactly what I wanted to see out of a teamer deck. I loved it. Going up to number 6, Sam, what is your number 6 deck?
So my number 6 deck is one that I think has fallen out of favor in like the tournament scene, but it's Krark Sakashima.
God damn it! I knew you were going to say that. God damn it! I could feel it.
It's still such a powerful deck in my mind. It just has this value grind that I think people, even with all the resources out there, I think people really still struggle to play into it. And it also just has these like interaction locks that can happen with Fierce Guardianship that like you don't really see any other deck able to create an environment where you're just so absolutely fucked that you can't really stop things unless there's like a mind break trap there to pull things off the stack.
There's so many people who don't understand where you're supposed to interact with this deck. And it actively frustrates me because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, just do it before the trigger resolves and it'll be okay. Like just interact before the trigger, respond to the trigger. And people never do it. And it drives me insane because I'm just sitting there watching it back in my local meta in Lincoln. There were up to 6 Krark Sakashima pilots in that meta. It was miserable. There were quite often 4, like a table of 4 Krark Sakashima decks at it.
Yeah.
But people in that meta would play against it all the time, and they would just be like, okay, so I respond after they make the copy, and I'm like, no, you want to respond to the trigger, baby. You want to make sure that that spell never has a chance to get back to their hand. You want it gone.
Exactly.
But
even then, it can just be such a challenge. Like, even when you know when the right interaction point is, the deck can still just kind of pull things out of nowhere. And I think that it's fallen out of favor, kind of rightfully so, because it's very challenging to pilot on a clock. It's really time intensive at the table, and I think it's incredibly skill intensive as well to know like how to build your board up and like when to be casting things.
Honestly, the best thing to do against it is either play a Rule of Law effect, which unfortunately the best Rule of Law deck in the format, or I guess there's two, being probably Tayam and Winota, and one of them is no longer able to be played, right? So it's in a much better position than it was. I recently played against it against Ken Bauman. He came here for a recording, and I mean, like I thought I piloted perfectly against him, and he still was able to just like get to that point where it was just the critical mass of spells after getting one wheel off, and I was like, yeah, you're like, there's nothing I can do against
it
this
kind of
now.
feels like a bit like 5-color Sisay to me, where like in the hands of someone who really knows what they're doing, it is just an unstoppable force. It's very, very powerful.
Agreed.
I mean, I think it is the perfect like translation of Giftstorm for Modern into like, because it's the same thing with Giftstorm, right? If Caleb Shearer walks up to a Modern tournament and you hand him Giftstorm, there is a pretty decent chance, regardless of the meta, that he's going to end up in top 8. And it's just like, it's one of those things. It's the same thing with Kurok Sakashima, where it's maybe not the best in the meta right now, but if you hand it to a pilot who's really good with it, there's a good chance they're going to top 16 with it.
I also think that the stacks pieces that shut it down are usually stacks pieces that other people at the table are incentivized to remove for their own plan. And that is like a very safe place to be when you're playing into a stacks pod. Like what you were saying, Ian, Winota plays a Rule of Law and everyone's like, oh, fuck, we got to get rid of that Rule of Law. And the Kurok Sakashima's player is like, yeah, please get rid of it.
Please get rid of it for me, daddy. Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Quag
and Sakashima.
I'm just a little guy.
Just a little guy over here with no thumbs.
Oh yeah, that's right. I can't do this. You got to do this. I'm just a little guy.
But seriously, that is like a huge thing, because again, I'm mainly a stacks player, and like there are so many times where people are pointing removal at my stacks pieces, and I'm like, do not remove that. I am locking down this deck better than anything you're capable of doing against that deck.
This comes back to something that we talked about. Yeah. It wasn't last week. I think it might have been on the last power rankings.
One of these,
where it's people need to be comfortable sitting underneath stacks for a few turns.
100%.
People need to start getting comfortable with, okay, there's a Rule of Law out. I know it sucks. It's fucking annoying, but I'm going to be okay with it for a bit, because I am aware that is hurting my other two opponents just as much. And I need to figure out how to get out ahead of them first. And so that's the thing that I'm going to continually say to people with Rule of Laws and with stacks effects is just, you got to pick your spot. You've got to sit there and you've got to be like, okay, this is hurting them. My stacks opponent is so fucking slow. I need to pick my window and I need to make sure that I can get out ahead of this thing at the right time. With that being said, Ian, what is your 6 for the month of July?
Yeah, for July, I have Kinnan at 6. Kind of everything we talked about already, right? Sam, no, it's. I think Kinnan's super solid. Once again, we kind of the point was made earlier, right? It's, if you're a solid pilot with it, you're going to do well with it. There are people who consistently all the time put up results with this deck. If you have that level of comfort, you're going to do well with it. I think that's really all there is to it. Also, very good if you're seeing a lot of stacks. Very good against decks like Siam,
for sure.
Like that. So
very stacks resilient.
My number 6 is Atraxa Grand Unifier. Exactly where I had it last month. It's really good. Keeps popping up. I think people are building it incorrectly, but that's a whole other can of worms. The fact that people,
I had like 8 coaching sessions in a row all about building this deck correctly. Like this
is the thing, but this is why I have it so high. Is it's being built incorrectly, and people are still getting into top 16s with it. So it's okay, so something's there, right? Like, so that's kind of where I'm at with
absolutely.
it. Is it's I've said this before, but it does the Thrasios Tymna thing. But imagine if that deck had a win con in the command zone. It does that. Yeah. And I really like it. It's the second best kitten deck in the format. And I am 100% not building it. Moving into the top 5. Sam, what is your number 5 for the month of July?
My number 5 is Najeela, actually.
Wow. Okay. Najeela at 5.
Yep. Yeah, Najeela at 5. I think Najeela is a very, very powerful deck. Obviously, I mean, it's one of the best 5-color decks in cEDH. It's stacks resilient, depending on what's going on. But I think the real strength is obviously that it can like pivot between win cons, and it has a myriad of win cons that it can pull on. Yeah. I do also think that Najeela has a little bit of a kind of what you guys are talking about. I mean, the numbers don't necessarily back it up. But I do think that there's this situation with Najeela where people panic a bit when they see a Najeela deck at the table. And there's a little laser focus onto Najeela to continually remove it. The good thing is that Najeela can pivot through that. But still, there's some laser focus on it that I think it
just Euro steps right through it. Just doesn't even care. It's just like sidestep right through it. Not a big deal.
But I also don't have a ton of experience with the deck, so it's not like quite as high on my list as maybe some others would put it.
Let me tell you, as somebody who makes content with Pongo and lived in the same city as Phoenix, who is a Najeela main, fucking miserable. I have had to play. I have put in my time against that goddamn deck. I've played against it so much. I hate Najeela so much, but I
just run Goblin Sharpshooter, so dude. Good. Goblin Sharpshooter fucking owns Najeela every day.
My bad. I should have been doing that before. Yeah. Obviously, duh.
Yeah, you got to tech that in, you know?
Yeah, obvious tech. Number 5, Ian. What's your number 5 here?
This is my Atraxa. Yeah, Atraxa moved up my list pretty considerably. Just because it's kind of what Cal was saying. Like, it keeps being built rather poorly. As I mentioned, I've had like 7 or 8 coaching sessions where people have asked me to like help them optimize this deck, and then they optimize it even more, and then they still get frustrated with it. But like, it's, I don't know, for some reason it keeps top 16ing. And I'm kind of at a loss with how to describe this, because like I genuinely, every single match I've played with an Atraxa pilot, they do nothing. Like actually, factually nothing. I've yet to see them resolve a single spell. I've lost to one Atraxa pilot, and then the other times I've played against it, and I wonder if it's just like another thing, like the Kinnan and Sisse thing we were talking about earlier. Just like maybe there's a floor to it, but like I just feel like I see these pilots just get 6 mana and then go, any day now I'll draw this land, and then they don't draw the land. And meanwhile, they're feeding Tymnas, they're feeding other things, like they're in free Najeela attacks, and then they lose the game.
I was like, saying what happened? Like, I was saying this earlier in our little group chat we had for the show, as I was working on building my list for it, I've never seen a deck more obviously built by people who have only ever played Turbonaws. Because it's just like a great example of a card that was not in these decks, any of them, that blows my mind was Neoform. Like
I'm actually in agreement with the pilots here. I think Neoform is awful in this.
No, you're insane. You're on crack. Because here is the deal. You have a dork out, right? oh, I have this cute little demonic consultation. I guess I'll just go win the game.
Yeah, but like, in what scenarios do you just have free reign to cast 2 instants of sorceries?
What are you talking about? So many times. Are you kidding me?
I've literally never ended up in that scenario where they're just like, yeah, I'll let you get 2 instants of sorceries and just win the game.
Dude,
like,
I am telling you from Mox Masters experience, the amount of times that people at that tournament this month just sat there and just like tapped out and was like, okay, I'm Liberator. I don't have anything to do here. And it's just free window to do anything. And you're just like,
PTSD from the Liberator matchup.
Oh my God. I'm fuming at the mouth from that fucking. Stop playing a deck that can't do anything.
I think one of the interesting things with Atraxa, and I wonder if this is what's giving it so many wins, is that, and I'll just say it's not in my top 10. I'm just not too familiar with the deck. But I wonder if people are underestimating Atraxa just as a card on its own. Like, to me, it seems like maybe you're hanging on to a counter spell for when they cast Atraxa, but generally the Atraxa player is probably wanting to do that with some protection up. And so that's probably the not correct place to have that fight. And I think that you might be better off like trying to fuck with their resources and never let them get to Atraxa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, people don't want to counter a Bloom Tender. They don't want to counter a Mana Vault because it feels weird. But against an Atraxa deck, that's probably the right move.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that's also probably the right move against Tivit.
Yeah. Play Culling Ritual. It's good.
This is the problem, and this is why decks like Tivit and Tayam keep doing well, right? Is because we live in a format where like you also have the Dihadas and the Rogzais and the blue farms of the world, right? So it's like, then you hear about people like, oh yeah, I literally heard about someone in a session I had today. They were like, oh yeah, someone would abrupt decay my Mana Vault so I couldn't cast Tivit. And it's like, okay, great. Like, you took out the Tivit player, but like, in what scenario is an abrupt decay not going to save you in a scenario that most things would, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can't, like, 1-for-1ing like that is not efficient in cEDH. And I feel like we're under this idea, and when we have these conversations, like, that comes up all the time. It's like, oh, well, let me just spend this one for it's part of the problem with Winota right now is that people will tap out to remove a Winota so she can't go to combat, and then they're tapped out, and the blue farm player is like, thanks for tapping out, nerd, here's my breach. Like, and it happens all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Well, it's insane. It's never the players who are tapping out to remove Winota that win the game ever. And I think the same thing's going to happen if you're using an abrupt decay on a Mana Vault so they can't cast a Tivit. Like, definitely. In what world would that abrupt decay not stop the time sieve when you need to stop it, right? Like, there's arguments about mana efficiency or whatnot.
It's about picking your window, right? Like, you've got to know where the window is, and people just don't.
I've
few decks
happen too.
And even like resource denial, like as a 1-for-1, like you said, Ian, it's not. People generally probably won't do that, but resource denial, I mean, that's kind of like the beauty of stacks. Again, stacks player, like, hey, you want to stop that Mana Vault? Just play fucking Collector Oof and stop every Mana Vault. You know what I mean? But few decks can actually do that and still play well.
Right. A lot of your effects are like 15-for-1s, right? And like, that's kind of the benefit of the deck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's sort of like the trouble and the nuance of cEDH is like sometimes like the stacks pieces are the things that are going to actually answer stuff repeatedly, right? So then you have to play stacks effects, but oh wait, stacks effects are actually good and they stop you too, right? And this is where the dynamic comes in. And I feel like a lot of these conversations tend to end up with like, oh, well, just subscribe to this really bad play pattern and the deck won't be a problem anymore. And it's like, okay, but there are still 2 other people at the table. So congratulations, you've now invalidated yourself and another player.
Cool.
Just give the Atraxa player food poisoning before the match so they drop.
If every one of your opponents gets up and goes, oh, I gotta poop, then you're fine, right? Like,
you've got him. Got him.
That's the big brain strategy. This is the kind of competitive talk you come to the Mind Sculptors for.
Yes, absolutely.
Drop a bit of Miralax in the water of every one of your opponents.
Make sure they have Chipotle beforehand. You know, take them out to dinner. Really have a good talk.
You just hand out like some free, just free tacos from your cargo short pocket right before the tournament.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quick snack.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just a burrito, man. What are you worried about?
Yeah. What are you afraid of?
My number 5 is Timna Crom. I have it
Very
here.
interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah, I have it pretty low because what I've watched happen is Brian Koval ate his fruits and vegetables and did really well with it. And then a bunch of people went, oh, we can play Timna Crom again. And so they started playing Timna Crom. The problem is that they're not playing Timna Crom like they're supposed to. They're playing Timna Crom like a bunch of idiots. And the way you play the deck is you play it like a control deck, and you find a window where you can drop a Breach or you can drop a Naz, and you win. It's not a Turbo Naz deck, people. Please stop playing it like it's a Turbo Naz deck. I feel like I'm caught in the fucking Groundhog's Day because I feel like we go through these cycles of talking about Timna Crom, where we have to go, hey, Timna Crom's not a Turbo Naz deck. It's not a turbo deck. You have to be patient with it. It's a mid-range deck. It's like mid-range dock deck. And we'll eventually get through to somebody, or somebody will do really well, or will do well enough with it that people will listen. And then a little bit of time passes, and then we're back to square one. And it just it's the same thing over and over and over again. And it's so tiring, where it's like, I'll say Timna Crom's the best deck in the format 2 months ago, and then people will then start playing like morons, and now I'm here and I'm like, it's number 5, and it's just
I don't know. Also, but people can play like morons and still do well with the deck, which is
I get wins all the time.
Part about it. It's like it just top forward one of the most recent tournaments, and I think there was a top 16 too. Like it's still putting up results, and it's actually putting up more results than it has historically, right? Like I think people are starting to actually get how to use the play patterns because of people like Brian. And
I've just had like 4 games in a row that I played against it, where people tried to just play it like it was Rogsai, and I was just sitting there banging my head against the wall, where I was just like, guys, please,
not it.
Why are you playing? Why do you think you're playing Timna? Why do you think you're playing Crom? Like, come on. Like,
well, I think you guys are talking about something, and it's interesting that it's come up so many times, is that like when a deck gets popular in cEDH, a few things could happen. One is it goes the way of Winota, and people start to over-evaluate it. They say this thing needs to be fucking removed on site. 2, it goes the way of, what was it today? Sisse and, Timna and Crom. And that people are like, oh, I want to play that shit. Yeah, Kinnan as well. Yeah. I want to play that deck. I'm going to bring it to the next tournament. What better way to cut my teeth, in cEDH than in like a tournament environment?
Yep.
And they're not comfortable or familiar with the lines or really, again, I mentioned this with Kinnan. I think the comfort and the skill that comes with the deck is pivoting your strategy mid strategy. And that is very hard for new players to do. It's a lot easier to be like, I know that I need to like turbo out an Adnaz and go for it. It's a lot harder to be like, okay, I'm against a weird stacks deck. How do I shift things now?
How do I use this to my advantage? Right? Like,
But there's this like popularity bias that either moves in one of 2 ways, and it's either like pushing decks out of the top 10, or it's diluting the shit out of them and really kind of messing with their numbers.
It's really interesting, because I think this is a prime example of it. Is Brian Koval's in Oktoberfest. The move he made to get his Crom underneath the Draneth is, in my opinion, legendary, because he dress downs and you think, oh, this is a win attempt. No, it's not a win attempt. He's doing this so he can get his value engines online while his opponents can't. And he's literally using an opponent stacks piece against his opponents and getting in underneath of it despite it being out. Like, it's just one of the things where a bad player or a worse player would have just removed the Draneth, right?
Yeah.
A excellent player says, I'm going to use this dress down, draw a card, and get my draw engine in, and then continue to let it shut everybody else down and find my window. and that's just nobody's playing it like that. And Brian Koval, you're a fucking saint. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, Brian is pretty amazing. I mean, I think everybody has like their specific place where they start, and it's especially with cEDH, and like you got to pick a deck, and some people the only outlet they have to play is like tournament play, and that's gonna affect the numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wonder if you looked at like, you know, modern stats or something like that, where like a hot new deck is on the street, like the next month or 2 months, do you see a dip in those turnover results? Because there's like this rush, this gold rush of people trying to play that deck and maybe not playing it to the best of their skill or their best of the potential of the deck, and that dilutes things. It's just kind of an interesting phenomenon.
There's also the surprise factor too, but yeah, that too. Like that's another thing with like a new cEDH deck being like, hey, you never seen this weird jank before, and people are like, what the fuck do I do with that? It's like that literally happened with 4-mana Ob Nixilis, like top 16 twice in the first tournament. It was legal, and then it disappeared off the face of the earth.
It fucking wild. Moving on, number 4, Sam, what is your number 4 ranked deck?
Mine is Dawnwaker. I think it's still really awesome, even though people aren't playing it very often. It's one of my like primary decks that I play all the time. Between this one and Marath, and it's just awesome. It's a great deck. It has instant speed win cons. It's going to have even more when I put Born Upon the Wind in it. And it just has that mid-range grind that's just extremely good. It's what I want in a deck, you know, and it's fun to pilot.
Ian, your number 4.
My number 4 coming up real hot from not even a full spot at number 10 to now being my number 4 is Tayam.
No way.
That's also my number 4.
No way.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, there are definitely ways to answer this deck.
Yeah.
But people seem to not be doing it. And until people start respecting the deck the way it needs to be respected, it's gonna keep winning.
Here's the thing about what it's doing. It's not just winning.
Punishing.
It's like putting like 2 to 3 Tayam decks in finals pods. Like you're not seeing just one pop up. It's like multiple in the finals pods.
Of the last 2 tournaments, the only tournaments we have for July, it won one and had 2 placements in the top 4 in the next one. Like it is by far one of the best performing decks at the current moment. The pilots who know how to play it are playing it exceptionally well. It's I don't know why, like, because I was talking with them and they were talking about how like, a couple of the new cards didn't really change the deck that much. So I'm like wondering why all of a sudden this deck is like starting to become really, really good. But like it's doing the thing. People keep letting it win. And the pilots are good, right? But I definitely have like played against all of the known pilots on Tayam, and I don't think it's like insurmountable by any means. It's strong. It can win at instant speed. You can easily lose to its value process, right? But like it's a little crazy that it's just doing so well consistently.
It's so resilient.
I have it 4 too,
you know. I think that's one of the things is just the resiliency of the deck is like.
Well, the problem is like you'll be in situations where you're like, oh well, I'll just remove their ranger captain, and they're like, okay, sure, I'll sacrifice it and then pay 3 and then get it back.
Yeah,
and he's like, as soon as they get engines like that online, or they get their Sylvan Safekeeper, it's just like game's over.
The thing that I thought was really wild when I played against it was the Grafdigger's Cage that I landed against it was not the only thing that I needed in order to stop it. I also had to get a what's it called? A blind obedience down too in order to stop it. Like I needed a cage and another piece. And that's kind of what's wild about this deck is you don't need one stacks piece. You need like a couple. And if you can land a couple of them, you can slow the deck down enough that you can like either get over top of it or you can just kind of stop it. But I don't think there was this logic going around that, you just play removal against it. I don't think removal is the answer. I do think you should play more removal. I'm not saying don't play more removal. Let me be clear. But what I am saying is, hey, if there's a Graph Digger's Cage out, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about stacks. Be okay with stacks being on the table for a little bit, because what's happening is players are removing their opponent's stacks pieces that are stopping this, or there is a combination of them and they try to get rid of them all at once, but they can't win that turn. And then time just rolls around and you're like, oh, you're tapped out? Cool. I'm going to crack this. And okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do that again. And then you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, cool. I just lost the game. It's
tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Or they do, this is my favorite thing, where they'll do the finale for 2, and people in a Sans red deck can't figure out that that's for a Grand Abolisher. So it's hey friends. Hey everybody. I'm getting real up close and personal with the audio listeners right now.
Be nice.
If somebody Finale of Devastations or Invasion of Icorias for 2, and there's white in their color identity, counter the shit out of that spell, because it's not getting a dockside.
Yeah.
It's getting a Grand Abolisher.
It's probably not getting Collector Oof either.
Yeah, it's also probably not getting Oof. It's fucking astounding to me how much it happened. I did it because I sat there and I was just sitting there going, oh, I wonder what they're going to get here. And they got a Grand Abolisher. And then I immediately dud myself. I was like, oh, you fucking idiot. Of course they were getting a Grand Abolisher. It's...
Man, I want to build this deck now. You guys are...
It's pretty
I think
sweet.
you would like
you
it.
would
It's
love
creature,
it, actually.
It's creature stacks deck,
creature combo stacks.
Yeah.
So rounding out the list here, number 3. What's your number 3 here, Sam?
5-colored Sisay.
5-color Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. All right.
Yeah.
Baller.
Yeah. This is my big swing for top 3.
All right.
I think it's one of the best decks in cEDH. I think it is extremely hard to pilot. But man, it's just so fucking crazy when it goes off, and incredibly hard to interact with when somebody knows the lines really intimately. So my co-host Mike, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but my co-host Mike on the Howling Salt Mind podcast, he has been playing and innovating on Sisay for maybe a couple of years now, over a year now. He's been playing it for a long time, and bringing in a lot of these really strange lines into our weekly games, and I'm playing against them. Not only does the deck shift and change a lot, but the lines are so hard to read, and it's incredibly stacks resilient. Outside of Cursed Totem, which no one's fucking running Cursed Totem these days. I'm not seeing anybody on it.
People just think that they can rely on oh, I got an op agent. It's bro, you're not going to get an op agent every time. It's not going to turn the deck off.
Sisay's a 5-color deck that plays a lot of creature removal.
Exactly.
For that reason.
And Graph Digger's Cage fucks it up a little bit too. But even then, you're getting
Planeswalker, so who cares, right?
Well, that's the thing. You can get a Planeswalker, and then you can deal with the cage. So there's a lot of, or you can still just win on top of it.
Right.
So there's a lot of different angles to it. And it's interesting to hear from you guys that the popularity is sandbagging it in the top 10 a little bit, which I totally get because it's challenging. But as someone who's faced this deck, hundreds of times, it is very, very hard to interact with, and can go for a win, get interacted with, pivot, and go for the win again. The other thing I'll say, and this is kind of why I included Magda in my list, is that 5-color Sisay will never be irrelevant in cEDH, because every single set that Wizards printed that has a legendary creature is going to put more tools in the toolbox for Sisay.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mount Doom is insane in the list.
That I think is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and it's crazy. There's all these different wins of different complexities. Croxa is just a really solid win that just lands and basically wins the game.
I think Mount Doom actually got rid of the need for Croxa.
Oh yeah, it did. It did replace it.
Yeah.
But even then, point being, it's one of these things that I think a lot of people say with Magda and even with Sisay, and you guys might have said it in your previous episode or your previous top 10, that it's one of those commanders that once you learn the line and the moments to interact, it does become a lot easier to beat. But my counter argument is that the lines are going to continue to evolve. And even if you're I know exactly what to do. Oath of Teferi, Dragon God's going to come out. I can interact with this. And they're like, oh no, I'm on some new shit now. And you're like, well, Like it's just one of those toolbox decks that I think is always going to be relevant in cEDH. And it's fucking incredibly powerful.
But Sam, what if I get an opposition agent out against it?
I mean, that will fuck it up like pretty bad.
If you get to flash in an op agent on that deck, you're gonna ruin its day.
Yeah, you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a really good time.
You're gonna take some kids' lunch money, but
but man, I mean, it's just extremely powerful, and I think it has a high skill ceiling, which is challenging. And maybe it doesn't look as good as it truly performs with a skilled pilot.
Yeah. Ian, number 3. What's your number 3?
Blue Farm.
Wow, what a surprise.
The deck's still putting up results. It's still doing the thing. It's Tymna and Crom are stupidly powerful. Like they're doing the same old thing they've been doing. My top 3, I'm just gonna let it be known ahead of time. My top 3 has not changed since last time.
Same.
I will have
not entirely, but no, mine has changed a little bit.
But I mean, Blue Farm just put up another top 4, put up results in the most recent tournaments. I think, as you mentioned, it's a deck with a somewhat of a skill ceiling, and it's still putting up results. So what does that tell you about when a good pilot picks up the deck?
Yeah.
And this is coming out on Monday, so I can say this, but I've been sandbagging this part the whole time, is that I do intend to play Blue Farm at the cookout this weekend. So we'll see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You better kick ass with it, or else I'm going to disown you.
It's fine,
dude. It's super easy. Just play it like an Adnos deck. Just play it like an Adnos
just play it like it's Rogsai.
Definitely. No, I mean, I literally added CMC to the deck because I was like, I literally added kitten combos into it because I'm like, you know what, let's just add more win conditions that are actually like chunky and solid, and like we'll get the job done in different places. So
yeah, my number 3 is instead of Najeela, I have Thras Bruce here, because I actually I know it didn't do anything here, but I kind of am leaning on the history of the deck and the fact that I will continue to say it is the best post turn 3 deck in the format. If you get into the mid to late game and Thrasios Bruce is in your pod, it's going to be a bad time. The deck is just so good the longer the game goes on. And so, I have that there. That's kind of my feeling on Thras Bruce. I think it is extraordinarily well positioned. And this is your signal to please fucking play this deck, and just it's good. Listen to me.
Take the wins.
The only reason I'm not playing it is because I'm playing the best deck in the format. So that's how I feel about it. Sam, what's your number 2?
Tymna Crom. That's my number 2. I mean, for all the reasons you guys said, 2 amazing value engines right in the command zone. And the fact that they both kind of pivot into slightly different strategies, I think is really awesome. Depending on like what your opening hand is. So it's just great. I'm really glad to see like Opus Thief builds coming back, because that's the deck that I played when I first started with Tymna Crom, and I fucking just love that wheel grind. So it's cool to see that back in the meta and doing quite well.
I miss the days of wheeling so that they didn't have their pieces of flash in hand. Those were
the days. Oh no, you don't have the stuff you need to go flash on top of me. Oh no, this is such a bad time.
I'll never forget that one of my first episodes of the cEDH cast. It was Brayden, myself, and Shaper Savant, and Shaper and I ended the podcast by just chanting Tymna Crom at Brayden until they hung out. So I've been a Tymna Crom stand for a long time, but then it got too popular, and I was like, all right, I'll leave it alone for a while.
So Ian, your number 2 is Najeela, unchanged from last month. My
good.
number,
Yeah, I mean, she's good, right? And she keeps winning. And the fact that not only that the other tournament that has been won recently was won by a Najeela list by a pilot who I know for a fact had not piloted Najeela until the day before that tournament.
Dang.
Just like, yeah, this deck's good, I'll play it. So like, that's pretty indicative to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I mean, I have it at number 2 as well. It's the deck that always blows me away, because what it does is it's just like literally what I said earlier. Like, it just Euro steps around every hate that you put onto it. Like, it's just like, oh, you thought you had me there. No, you didn't. I'm gonna go this way. And so it's like, it's so incredibly hard to disrupt this deck, and that's why I have it at number 2. I am a giant fan of Najeela. Well, actually, I'm a giant hater of Najeela, but I mean that in the nicest way possible, because the deck it's just, I've played against it for so long, and it's been like one of the top 2 or 3 best decks in the format for so long that it just I hate playing against it, but it's so good. You can't deny how good it is. It's moving up for me a little bit. And so finally, Sam, your number 1 deck in the format, is it? Are we all in agreement, or are you?
I think we're all in agreement here. It's Tivit.
Tivit, Seller of Secrets, baby. Tivit's the king.
Yeah.
All hail the king.
It's fucking insane. I mean, you know, we say it all the time, or you guys say it all the time, but 1-card combo with Time Civ is wild. Ward. Why does it have Ward?
The Ward makes it so much better. Like, it makes it astoundingly better.
I remember when Ward was spoiled as a mechanic, and I was like, it's kind of stupid. And now I'm like, this is fucking
This is
crazy.
better than Hexproof. What the fuck?
Yeah, it really is. And so to quote Ken Bauman, who I saw a few weeks ago down at Ian's place, Tivit is good because it's a design mistake.
I was unaware of that Ken quote. That's very good.
That's
which
amazing.
I completely agree with. He had a $50 Tivit deck and was just like running the table. And I was like, wow, that's really good. And he's like, yeah, it's because Tivit's a design mistake. I was like, oh, yeah. That's a really good point.
Tivit shouldn't exist.
It didn't need Ward. It would probably still be in our top 5 list even without Ward. And the fact that it has Ward is fucking insane, man. It like the resiliency is just
if
wild.
They gave Atraxa Ward, how much better Atraxa would get. Like, it would become substantially better.
I disagree on both of those points. Actually, I think Ward is 100% instrumental for Tivit not sucking.
Really?
Like, yes, I think the amount of time
I agree with you.
Where, that I think it would be like barely playable if it didn't have Ward. I think the amount of times it like comes up that it is hard to interact with, or you have to overcommit to interact with it, that it comes up quite a lot. And with the tracks, I don't think anyone cares. I've literally never seen anyone point a targeted removal spell towards an Atraxa. Like, Atraxa's game plan is not to care about what happens when Atraxa hits the board; it's to counter it before it hits the board. Right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
it
it's
just
good.
it feels very similar to me, where it's like if it had that, it would just make the like where it just sits like it gets a bad flip, right? And then it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just attack you, and you know, you can remove it. But when Tivit does that, you're kind of like, yep, I guess I'm taking that. And it's just because you can't do anything about it. And in a world where Bowmasters is a thing, it's pretty damn good that your commander just is like, you're going to pay 2 for every single time you try to ping my commander? You're going to pay 12 to remove this? Yeah. I don't think so, champ. So it's quite a good commander. Well, so that's our power rankings for the month of July. Woo! Just to recap here for Sam, our guest, his top 10 was Timnatana, Dargo Thrasios, Magda Brazen Outlaw, Rog Silas, Krark Sakashima, Najeela the Blade Blossom, Thrasios Bruce Dawnwaker, Sisse Weatherlight Captain, Timnacrom, and Tivit, Seller of Secrets. For my co-host Ian, it was Timna Malcolm, Sisse Weatherlight Captain, Rogsai, Dahada, Binder of Wills, the Mardu Summer is real, baby. Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, Atraxa, Grand Unifier, Tyam, Luminous Enigma, Timnacrom, Najila the Blade Blossom, and Tivit, Seller of Secrets. And then my top 10 being Rogsai, Kinnan, Sisse, Dargo Thras, Atraxa, Timnacrom, Tyam, Thrasbruce, Najila, Tivit. So that is the power rankings for the month of July. Sam, thank you so much for joining us
thanks for having
episode. It would not be a Mind Sculptors guest rank list if it didn't go to the 2-hour mark. So, Sam, tell me a little bit about the Howling Salt Mine and where people can find you on the internet.
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Howling Salt Mine is a comedy advice podcast about Magic the Gathering. And basically what we do is
it's my brother and me, quite like honestly.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty much my brother and me, but for Magic. And we're not brothers. I host it with my friend Mike and my friend Tony. And every week we read salty stories about Magic the Gathering games gone wrong that are submitted to us from the Magic community. Or in the early days, we were finding a lot of them on Reddit. And nowadays, we just kind of get flooded with them, which is pretty sweet. So we don't really have to do much mining anymore. But hey, the name sticks.
Yeah.
We read them. We joke about them. We talk about the playgroup dynamics. We talk about cEDH. We talk about casual because our playgroup loves both. And we actually usually talk about it a lot in the context of like reducing salt by playing some cEDH. So your casual games are a little less intense.
Yeah.
And having an outlet for that powerful shit. So if you're a cEDH player, you'll probably get a really good laugh out of it. If you're a casual player, you're really going to enjoy it. We've got an awesome theme song. We've got a salty card of the week every week. Ian has been on it before. So if you're looking for a first episode to check out, listen to the one with Ian. And we're trying to get more guests on now and load it up for the summer. And, I'll probably get you two jokers on there at some point. And, yeah, it's just a really good time. So if you like the sound of my voice, come check us out. We're on Spotify. We're on pretty much everywhere that you can find podcasts. We aren't on YouTube. The Magic the Gathering sphere is a weird thing where I need to say that my podcast isn't a video podcast because that's such a common thing, like the one I'm on right now. But it's just audio.
No, it's really great. You do with your podcast what I wish. I don't know if anybody ever listens to Not Another D&D podcast, but they do like D&D Court, and I want them to just do that, and that's what your show is, and I absolutely love it. So
I love NADPod, and it was definitely some inspiration for what we do.
So who's your lowly bailiff?
I think it's probably Tony. Tony pretty much always gets the short end of the stick in any running gag that we're doing. He'll be the first person to tell you that he absolutely deserves it and loves it. So like every single time, and it's become this running thing in our Patreon Discord where like the patrons started like dunking on Tony, and he's like, "Oh man, they're starting to do this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you kind of told some of them to like that they were pieces of shit, and they're just gonna come back at you twice as hard." And he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I know my role. I know my role.
I'm the heel. I get it."
Yeah, he is 100% the heel. Mike is usually the straight man, and then I am, the one that talks the most.
Yeah, sultry tones.
The reason people stay.
I'm the ship captain.
Yeah, honestly, it does feel like that when I listen, for sure.
Well, I don't know what role I play on the podcast because I'm both like host and also I like antagonize people.
Most likely to get a sidetrack.
Yeah, already Ian has to play this like interesting role of like jokester and like sudden U-turn to straight man to be like, let me just like pour some cold water on that take. And
It is for sure. Yeah, because the amount of times I used to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, well, Cal's popping off again.
But yeah, thanks again for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
It's been super, super fun.
Yeah,
and, you know, it's weird to be on video. So I hope people at home enjoyed looking at me. And hopefully you don't see how sweaty I am in my third room, tiny office.
Oh, it's okay. I'm in my office, and there's currently a heat advisory in Louisville. And our AC is just not having it with it. So I'm sitting in here with lights on, and I'm just like, cannot wait to turn all these lights off.
Yeah, it's steamy.
And I'm just hungover.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ian is has been under a comfy blankie the entire time.
Yeah.
I've wanted to point that out so often. He's
Ian's
just got
in fucking lounge pants, like a cutoff tee, like a absolute piece of garbage. Like
just like a big fluffy blankie over your belly.
Do I look like I live 20 minutes away from the Jersey Shore now?
It looks
that's what it feels like.
You are like rolling up to Walmart with like a 20 and you're just like picking out some fucking deli like chicken, and you roll through the cash register and you've got like a 12-pack of like Miller Lite and you're ready to go. Like,
yeah, and you've already eaten half the deli chicken.
Yeah,
by
you've
the
already
time
eaten most of the chicken.
Yeah.
It's a little pick me up as you're walking around.
I drop it down and I go, it was full and I got it. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Well, that was
good.
the Mind Sculptors podcast for you. If you want to continue to see Ian and I do this, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Please do that for us. Is this where, am I supposed to animate something here for you this time, or can I not animate something this time?
I didn't call you out on it, but now you've called you out on it. So now we need to. So now we can cut back to the clip of me doing that. Meanwhile, while I'm explaining it, you can also keep my audio of me explaining it. So we cut back to the clip of me doing the thumb, and then you can do like a little red thumb and ding right over my thumb, and then as I go like this, the subscribe bar pops
and the
up.
cats.
And
yeah, I need to make sure I get the cats.
The cats.
The cats need to be there.
Yeah.
So, but really, thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Patreon right now. Our
5-star review on Spotify always helps.
Subscribe.
Don't forget that.
And people haven't done this in a while, but if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it on the show. But nobody's done that in a while.
So I like that idea.
So go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and if you leave us a 5-star review, we'll read it here on the show. If you don't leave us a 5-star review, fuck you.
Does that mean I can like make an account and just like leave 5 stars, but just have it be like the most unhinged thing
I
in
hate
the
that
entire
I'm
world?
enabling this, but yes.
Well, audience, all you have to do is click 5 stars, and Cal will read some crazy
Oh my
shit.
gosh! Yeah, you've really opened the door on that one.
Yeah. But since Ian has joined, we both have crazy schedules over the next 2 weeks, but we are going to be sitting down. We're going to be trying to rework the Patreon so that it best serves y'all. So please make sure to subscribe there and join us in the Discord, where we will talk with people if you at me. So thank you all for joining us. And from Ian and myself, have a nice day.